What's up? What's up? It's Monday night. 10 Horse Money YouTube channel. I'm going solo tonight. Jonathan is tied up at the house. He's actually going to try to jump on here in a little bit, but I was just on the phone with him before we went live, and he's got a little wash machine leak, so his washer is leaking. He's kind of working on that, and then Ron's going to jump on here in a little bit. Ron will have some fresh reports from Lake of Egypt. He just texted me a little bit ago. He says he's going to be a little bit late because he's just getting off the water. And then about 8 o'clock, we're going to have Mr. Eric Prey from Table Rock Lake. He's going to kind of give us an update on what's going on down there at Table Rock. So it's good to see everybody on here. It's been a while since I did a solo one, so I'm going to have to kind of take a deep breath and let it go. We got some new faces on here. It's good to see everybody on here. Let's see. Tom started early, man. Tom was giving us some fishing reports at like noon today. He's been out on the water. And Stephanie, what's up? We got John in here. Hello from Missouri. It's cool when people leave a comment and let us know where they're from, like what town. That's really cool. See Clint's from West Plains. Good to see you on here. Randy Chapman from the Ozarks. Darius, I know he's from Kentucky. Daniel T, what's up, bro? Yeah, we got all kinds of people coming in. We got William on here. We got Mark. Zane. So what I kind of wanted to do tonight was, it's kind of an open forum. A lot of fish are spawning right now. They're kind of, we've had some fish that have already moved up and left, and we're in the middle of the full moon in May. So that's usually the biggest push of spawning fish. So we've got some fish on the beds, but a lot of fish are starting to leave the beds. Been catching some post-spawn fish. So I was kind of wanting to, first of all, I was wanting to do kind of, if you guys are on here listening, which I hope you're listening because you are on here, but, and you've been out on the water, maybe leaving fishing reports in the comment section. So that way everybody can kind of just scroll through it and I'll read them off and we can get that information out to everybody. That's kind of the first topic of the evening, is doing the fishing reports thing. And then secondly is we're going to kind of go over some baits that have been working for us and some baits that will continue to come into play as we get into like the post-spawn stuff. And then it starts to get into the summer stuff. So that's kind of a loose pattern. And then, like I said, it's going to be an open forum, so whatever you guys want to talk about, just throw it all out there, and we'll get to it. Duncan Carter from Liberty. Cool, man. Auto Trieve, Doug, what's up? And we got to do it. I was just thinking about that today, Doug, is you donated a Auto Trieve system to the live stream as a giveaway, and I was thinking about we need to be doing that giveaway sometime pretty soon. So it's going to be a really sweet giveaway. I'll definitely use some social media posts when we decide to do that. But Doug has offered, he's given us an Auto Trieve to give away, which is a really sweet lure retrieval system. It'll save you hundreds of dollars, in a month or so. But he's also volunteered his time to demonstrate how the Auto Trieve works. So the winner, we're not doing that tonight, but coming up soon, the winner of that is going to get basically a guided trip with Doug down there, probably on Wapapello or Clearwater. Granted, you have to make that drive down there, so but it would be worth your time. But we'll do some social media posts on that when it's gonna happen, and should be coming up pretty soon. Zane, what's up? Todd Phelps, what's going on? Fishing with Fitz, what's up, bro? I have not seen your name in quite a while. Hope you're doing good. Really good to see you on here. Milburn Markey. Colorado soon, Lake of the Ozarks. Man, Colorado. We just got back from Utah, and it was really nice. Really, really nice. I've been to Colorado a bunch, and it's actually been like 3 or 4 years since I've been to Colorado. So I miss that place. We've got Ron, Mr. Uncle Ron's down there in the queue, so I'm gonna bring him in. You good to come in, Ron? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Okay, cool. Ron will jump in here. What's going on, man?
What's going on, bud?
Nothing. I feel like I don't even know you anymore. It's like it's been forever.
My tournament season has been different than yours. You've been doing the BFLs or whatever, and I've been doing all the local stuff. So we've been kind of different path.
Yeah, that's true.
Congrats, by the way. The last couple of tournaments you've done really damn well.
Thank you. It's the momentum's swinging this way finally after, some tough tournaments. So I hope I can just keep it going. I'm where I need to be in the points and stuff. We've got like 2 more tournaments left in the Ozark division and then 3 more in the Kentucky in the LBL division. So I'm just trying to stay above that 45, top 45 so I can make the regionals.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how there's momentum in fishing?
There is.
And I can't really explain it because you go to different bodies of water and it's different times of year, but there is momentum, and it's an interesting thing, and keep it up.
Thank you. Yeah, I was looking at some of the hardware that I've won, and I think I won a BFL in like 2015 or 2016, and then the following year I had like a 3rd, a 7th, and an 8th, like back to back to back, and then I had a couple years where I'd make a check or 2 here and just do some okay, and then then last year I think I had a 12th place finish in one of them, and then this year I had a 12th and a 3rd and a 5th, and it's interesting. It's just momentum thing. So I don't know, but
pretty cool.
Yeah. So you just got off the water? Is that right?
Yeah, I just got home from Cedar, and I got English Choice out there on Sunday. So getting back out there to run around and see what's going on, and had fished a grassy tournament this last weekend, which was fun. I didn't do any good, but had a really good week of practice and had a really good time at the tournament. So spring it was like cold, and water temperature stuck at 50, and then you blink and it's 90 degrees.
It's
been a strange year.
Hey, Duncan, man. Yeah, it was good to meet you too. That was fun. I ran into a lot of people down there at Table Rock that recognized the channel and had a bunch of good things to say about the live stream and stuff. So that, man, just hearing those comments keeps me going, because it can be a grind at times. But yeah, somebody had something down here in the water about the water temps, and I was over at Cedar yesterday. Todd says it's unbelievable how much the water has warmed up in 1 week.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I don't know what it is at Egypt, but I was at Cedar like last Monday, so a week ago, and the main lake was like 67, and I found 70 about 3 o'clock back in one of those shallow pockets. And then I went over there yesterday, and the main lake was like 86 degrees.
Yeah.
In the same area, it was 67 6 days earlier. I was expecting like mid 70s, and I kept looking at my graph. I let the boat float for 30 minutes, and I turned my graph on again and looked, and it said 86.
Yeah.
Like, holy moly.
I spent all of last week on grassy. I think I fished every day except one. I took 1 day off, and it was 65 to 67 when I started. And Hunter fished with me one day, and we were putting the boat on the trailer, and I looked at the graph, and it was 86, just like you're talking about. And but what was really cool, we had the full moon. We just got through the full moon, so naturally there was a wave of spawners over there at grassy. But what was really cool about the heat, if you could stand to be in it, is it compressed that window of that wave of the spawn. And so I had the opportunity to see it every day, and it was interesting watching it change every day. I went from seeing fish literally pair up and move up on the bank and do their thing to fry at the end of the week. I just watched the whole thing unfold, and it was really compressed because of that heat. And there was a wave that came up because of that, because of the full moon. Then I watched the bluegill go nuts on the beds over there at grassy. And by the way, if anyone wants to catch any bluegill, go to grassy right now. Oh my gosh. But it was really educational. I didn't end up doing any good in the tournament. I only had 3 overs. But it was really cool.
So what was going on over there at grassy as far as the bite? Was it just typical spawn post-spawn bite, or what?
I was keeping track of fish shallow, and and I would catch one off a bed occasionally. Just, you can't grind through all your fish, but I would catch one off a bed occasionally in practice. I try and pick a small one. And I was reminded, I picked one I thought was about 13 inches, and the limit at Grassy is 15. Well, I caught it after playing with it. It was 15 and a half inches. I was like, holy cow, I got to be careful about what I'm doing here. So anyway, I kind of kept track of those fish. And by tournament time, all those fish that I had seen that were locked on were no longer locked on. They were just, they were in guarding fry mode. And we caught 3 shallow fish first half of the day, and then our shallow bite just died. So we ran out deep trying to catch. I mean, it's not a points that you're just trying to win. It's, so we ran out deep trying to catch some big fish, that in our mind maybe had spawned a while ago. And we didn't catch any good fish out deep, but the tournament was one offshore. And big bass, hats off to Don Johnson. If he's listening, he had big bass. And it was caught offshore. So, it's kind of that time of year where there's a little bit of everything going on. You just got to kind of pick your poison.
What's up, small water charters? Good to see you on here. Todd said he actually caught some schooling fish Saturday at Cedar.
I believe it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I believe it. Shad spawns going on, and yeah.
Congratulations, Zane. Finished 13th out of 60 boats on Egypt Saturday. Yeah, I noticed last night when I was fishing, we stayed till about 9:30 or so, and man, the lake really came to life. It was, sometimes you're out there. Yeah. Sometimes you're out there and it just gets kind of dead. Nothing's happening. It's just still. Last night there were fish blowing up in the grass on the bank, and I had my live scope on, which was really cool. It was the first time I'd ever fished with live scope after dark, and it's really neat because you don't really have to see the bank. You can cast at what you're seeing on your graph. But man, there were fish were moving, like they were really moving. Everywhere you'd pan the head of your trolling motor, you'd see all kinds of activity. They weren't necessarily chasing shad or anything, but there was just a lot of stuff going on in the water. It was super active. And yeah, I wish it would have been like I was with Jerry, and I told Jerry, I was like, this is one of those days when I wish I was 21 and I worked at Chick-fil-A still. I didn't have to go home, because I guarantee you could have crushed them all night long.
Well, this time, a little thing at Cedar, back in my night fishing days, of course, we would start night fishing at the beginning of April, sometimes the end of March, but the lightning bugs are starting to come out. And when you saw the lightning bugs, that was kind of the indicator of the post-spawn shallow fish that you could catch after dark. And back when Cedar didn't have quite as many weeds, the second half of May, you could just put a black spinnerbait on and just go. And it was a blast. I bet you could do that now to some degree, but the weeds kind of make it, especially with slime in the weeds down there, make it a little difficult.
Yeah, that grass is super slimy. It's a pain in the butt. I don't think you could fish it at night. Not really throwing up shallow, but I mean, you could get off the bank and fish just fine. But that grass is just too slimy right now. Yeah. Oliver, yeah, man, it's good to run into all you guys down there. Yeah, that water was high at Table Rock. We were down there. It was like 11 feet high, 11 feet over full pool. Somebody left a comment on a video saying that I think summer pool was 917, but from the research I did, it showed full pool at 915. And we'll ask Eric when he gets on here what the actual full pool is. But full pool was 915, and it was 926 and a half on that Saturday of the tournament. So there was so much stuff in the water. If you wanted to fish shallow, there was unlimited But there's too much stuff. They get back in that and you can't get to them. If it's like a foot or two high, that's perfect. But when it gets, 5, 6, 7 feet high, it just gets out of control. You just can't cover that water. And you'd almost have to know where the fish were at before the water came up and just fish those little stretches. But going down there kind of blind, we didn't have that luxury.
Did you have to fish banks where the fish couldn't get away from you?
Well, we did that in pre-fishing. We started targeting some bluffs, some steeper banks, and for us, the best pattern was fishing out about 20 feet, where we call it the old bank line. It's kind of a common term, but those fish down there are spawning typically on Table Rock. They'll spawn in that 8 to 12 foot zone. Mm-hmm. So if you throw 10, 11 feet on top of that, you're looking at 18 to 22 feet is where they would have been spawning before the water came up. So that's kind of what we started targeting, was that basically like 16 to 22 foot zone, and started running into some fish. So there's definitely still some fish that just stayed out there. And I'm sure some people caught them up shallow too, but we had one day, we had a debacle down there. We had a flat tire on the way the first day, Thursday, and we planned on getting on the water about noon. So we didn't get on the water till like 3:30 or so. It ended up being, just a few hours of practice. And we found one little stretch where they were in some bushes. So we poked a couple of those and then moved on. And then Friday, it rained. It just rained all night long. And then it rained Friday morning early, and we kind of slept in. And we didn't get on the water at like 10 or 11 o'clock. And
sounds like Mille Lacs.
We were on banker's hours, man. We really were. But we needed it, man. I needed the sleep. I've been running hard for like 2 weeks. I was just burnt. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is just actually get some good rest.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we did target some of the deeper banks that, kept the water from getting too far back in the bushes, but we just couldn't get that pattern going. Darius says he's going back to St. Clair. Man,
I think I'm leaving next week. I haven't picked the exact day, but it's killing me. Saturday was opener at Mille Lacs. That's the first time I haven't been. It's the first time I fished Illinois in May since 2015 or whatever it was, 16. Yeah, so it's killing me seeing all the fishing reports up there. Although they had a lot of wind, so I felt a little better.
Well, I was thinking about you the other day, and I posted that Mille Lacs video, our last day of Mille Lacs. I reposted. I
saw that. I watched it again.
Yeah. I was thinking about you. I was like, maybe Ron needs to see this just to stir up some memories again. Well, that's cool. You're going back up there.
Yeah, I got to. I'm going to go up there for 10 days or so, and then now try and get it before they go on bed, and then I'm going back up in August for 2 weeks. So we got we're actually, my Uncle Jim is having a family reunion at Mille Lacs, so great excuse to go back up there. So I'm going to be up there for 2 weeks in August too. So.
Small water, my pond dropped a bunch last week with those we had mid 90 degree days, like 3 or 4 of them in a row, and it evaporated a ton of water out of this little pond behind my house. I was kind of blown away how much water disappeared. It's crazy. Andy's been catching them on that Mini Max. I need to pick up some of those.
I've never thrown it.
No, I haven't either. I keep forgetting. I just ordered a bunch of stuff from Omnia, and I keep forgetting to get those. So, Michael, Tammy's out there on the lake. He says, has THM echoing through the hills at Cedar.
I was coming in when they were heading out. So actually, Hammy and I are fishing together tomorrow.
Well, good. You going over there?
Yeah, we're going to Cedar. And do you see his thing there? No planes tonight. Did you hear about yesterday?
I saw something where there was a plane flying around Cedar or something. I didn't get the whole story.
I swear to God, this is the truth. So I was out there yesterday. Mike and his dad were out there yesterday, and we ran into each other on the south end. Well, I decided to run north. So I'm fishing up on the north end, just minding my own business. And I hear a plane. And I'm like, man, that thing sounds low. And I look up, I don't see anything. Well, I don't see anything because he's on the water. I look down and he's coming right at me down the main chute of the lake, out from the dam, going basically straight north towards the Carbondale access. And his tires, I swear to God, are in the water. He's throwing a wake. I'm not kidding. And it was a fixed wing, like Cessna type of plane, bright yellow. I'll never forget it. I thought it was going to run into me. And it finally takes off, barely clears the trees, and off it goes. Well, at that time, I look at my phone. I'm like in shock. I look at my phone, and it's Hunter. And he says, hey, did you see the plane? And I guess it did the same thing all the way from the south end of the lake, all the way to the front of the lake. I don't know if it went under the power lines or went over. I don't know what it did in between there. But his tires were literally in the water. It was absurd. And there was kayakers everywhere. It was Sunday. Yeah, it's a miracle that a kayaker didn't get run over by the plane. I don't know I have no idea. Someone was showing off to his girlfriend or something.
That's nuts, man.
It was absurd. I've never seen anything like it.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Huh. So anyway, that was the highlight of the day yesterday.
Well, we had a lady standing on the boat ramp or on the dock when we got back last night at 9:30. She was out there by herself. There's nobody in the parking lot, but there was just this lady standing on the dock. And Jerry was a little bit nervous because he was the one that was going to have to jump off and go get my truck. And she didn't move. She just stood right there. Apparently, she was just out there watching the lunar eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but, we had kind of contrived this big thing like she was some Wiccan sorcerer that was going to suck our soul out and sacrifice us to the lunar eclipse moon or something. and then Jerry jumped off. But, yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on the last couple of days out there.
Yeah, that weird moon, I guess, had people stirred up. But yeah, it's first time I've ever seen that. It was he was throwing a rooster tail. Guess we checked the prop, see if he had his plane propped right.
That's crazy.
It was dangerous. It was dangerous. I don't, they fly low over that lake all the time, but his wheels were in the water.
I heard a story at Table Rock. The guy I was fishing with, my boater, he was pre-fishing. I don't know what lake he was fishing on. I think it might have been Table Rock. I'm not sure, but he was running. Yeah, I think it was Table Rock actually. He was running down the lake, and all of a sudden it sounded like his motor was missing out, or it was revving high. It just made a different purr. And he looks back, and there is a Black Hawk helicopter literally flying 50 feet right above him and right behind him, and it was just trailing him like this. And he turns around and he sees those cannons and the pilot in there. And I don't know if they were doing some kind of tracking test, just tracking a moving object, because he said he was running like 60 miles an hour, and he's just running. All of a sudden something sounded weird behind his boat, and he turns around and looks back, and there's this war machine got him in his sights. He said that was kind of like his stomach sank there for a little bit. So
I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Eric down here in the queue. So let's I'll pull him in. We'll get some Table Rock information. And then on the backside of that, we'll jump into some more like local fishing reports and stuff. So
sounds good.
Pull him in here real quick. What's going on, buddy?
No, not much. What's up, fellas?
Nothing, man. We're just talking helicopters and airplanes.
Yeah, I heard that. They the A-10s practice on boats on Stockton all the time. You'll be running down the lake, and you run the river on Stockton like the Big Sock, and you'll be hitting all those curves and cutting through the trees and everything, and you look back behind you, and there'll be two A-10s just tracking you the whole way. And they follow you all over the lake. They come out of Whiteman, and they use Stockton and Truman both as practice ranges to track moving objects. So
Okay.
it's kind of cool to see.
Well, maybe this guy was on Stockton then. I knew it was
been.
somewhere in the area.
Yeah, and I was on Truman years ago, and we were fishing on one side of it was like a bluff, and it was a long point that came out, and we kept hearing something. We couldn't tell what the heck it was, and I turned to my amateur partner, and I said, "What the heck are we listening? Are we hearing?" And we both look up at the same time, and right over the hill came a black hawk nose down on us. He was just sitting there, and he came over the hill and pointed down on us, and then flew off. That was spooky.
Wow.
Because, I mean, he was right on the other side of the hill. He must have come by and seen us and then kind of did an ambush move like he was going to take us out. So it's fun being this close to Whiteman Air Force Base. We become target practice for these guys.
Yeah, you just hope all the systems got their safety on.
Exactly. Yeah. Gives a whole new meaning to being the first to the fishing hole.
Jesus, no doubt. Randy says table rock fishing intel is the bomb.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate that, man. We're trying down here.
So what's going on down there? I was down there, for the BFL, and I know the water was like at 726 or 926.
Yeah.
Is it
It was actually, I think for the BFL was 728. It was 12 feet high. It's back down to 928, I guess, and it's back down to 924. So we're about 8 feet high off a normal pool right now. And the bites, you can do basically whatever you want and catch fish. There's fish in the bushes. So if you want to flip, you can catch fish. There's fish outside of the bushes. There's the last 3 days, we've had a pretty incredible shad spawn going on all over the lake. And so you've a lot of topwater fish the last few days. We fished the Anglers in Action over the weekend and had our first limit. Took off at 6 o'clock, or actually we were second flight, so about 6:05, and by 6:30 we were calling. So
wow,
it was just ridiculous time. Every one of them was on topwater, and a lot of fish being caught. The flipping bite's good, but it's frustrating. It's like any other flipping bite. When the water's high, you hit 150-yard stretch of bank and you might catch 7 or 8 fish, and then you go a whole nother mile flipping the exact same looking stuff and not get a bite. And that's kind of what bit us in the butt in the AIA. I mean, we got a little check, but we caught that limit, and I thought, well, we need to go upgrade and we'll flip, and caught a couple right off the bat and lost a real good one that would have really helped, would have got us from, I don't know, we finished in the top 20 and would have bumped us up in the top 5 with that one fish, and lost that one. And then we flipped for another hour and a half and had 2 more bites the whole time. So it's just flipping bites frustrating. Most consistent bite, just like always in spring and Table Rock, is just finesse stuff, Ned rigs, shaky heads, small jigs, a little peewee football jig, and stuff like that from the old bank line out to about 15 feet. And consistently catching smallmouth spots. Most of our largemouth are up in the bushes because there's still some that haven't even spawned. I caught one on a buzzbait yesterday in the bushes, and when I boat flipped it, there was blood dripping off of its tail. It was so fresh on the bed. So they're in all phases of the spawn. And it's just fun to fish right now. There's a lot of different ways you can catch fish right now on Table Rock.
So what kind of areas have you been targeting?
Mostly, I mean, everything's still kind of spawn related. So I'm looking on the topwater bite, anywhere I'm seeing a shad spawn. And on Table Rock, that's going to be when there's water's this high, it's going to be in the bushes. You'll see shad spawn on the bushes, or it's going to be around docks. We have a lot of shad that will spawn, especially on those bigger docks. They will pull up, and they can be, on Saturday in the AIA, we caught fish from a foot deep out to over 60 foot deep. The fish weren't 60 foot deep, but they were on those great big community docks and out on the ends of them. And there was just the shad spawn going on, and you just parallel the swim platform on the end of the dock and stay in the shade, and those fish would come out and eat a topwater. So topwater, I'm just looking for shad. Everything else, as far as like the finesse baits and the dragon baits, it's all pretty much pea gravel and pea gravel mixed with a little bit of rock, and just shallow and flatter the better.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Is there on the shad spawn on the docks? Is there a type of dock that tends to attract more shad, like a styrofoam bottom or anything like that?
Well, most of our docks don't have the styrofoam on them anymore. Most of them have to have the encapsulated foam. They made that illegal, like 10 or 15 years ago to replace the styrofoam with styrofoam. And at this point, anything that's that old, that styrofoam's pretty much gone. It's wore out. So it's all, it's all of our docks have that black encapsulated foam. So the foam doesn't really matter. It seemed our better buy over the weekend, and then today on my guide trip, and then yesterday on a guide trip, everything was on those bigger docks, those community docks that extend out further into the lake. And it seemed like the docks that are either on the south side of the lake or the east side of the lake, where they weren't getting direct sun on the end of the dock, those were all better. You can see I use active target, and the sunny docks, the ones with the sun setting, you can see the fish up underneath the floats and underneath the swim platform, but you can't draw them out. I mean, I've skipped flukes under there and everything else, and just can't seem to get those fish to come out. If you've got that little bit of shade, even if it's just a 6 or 8 inch shade line, and you keep your bait in that shade line, you can get bit right now, even in the middle of the day, as long as there's a little bit of shade on them.
I got you. Okay, that's good info.
So if somebody's wanting to go, like, you hear about this shad spawn stuff, it's kind of a mystery, not out on the water a whole lot. If somebody was just wanted to go and fish a shad spawn, what are some tips besides get there as early as possible in the morning?
I can tell you right now, the best bite when you're chasing the shad spawn has been first thing in the morning, from sun up to it. You can physically see the shad working on the docks or working in the bushes till about 7, maybe 7:30 is about the latest I've seen them going. Predicting the shad spawn's dang near impossible. It's at different times every year. The lake hits a certain water temperature. You get the moon phase, everything right. That's when the shad are going to spawn. Last year we didn't have a good shad spawn till almost June, and this year it's the second week of May we're having a really good shad spawn. So it's really difficult to. I want to plan my trip around the shad spawn. It's almost impossible to plan, to say, well, next year, the 3rd week of May, on the full moon, I'm going to be down there and those shad are going to be spawning. Well, good luck. They might be, but chances of you hitting it exactly right is pretty slim,
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of going out and looking for them. This morning I launched my boat at Baxter, and the water's high, so there's a lot of bushes in the water right next to the boat ramp. And as I'm backing my boat down, the water's just boiling around all those bushes, and it's just shad up there doing their thing, getting crazy, dropping the eggs and so on and so forth. Well, and then every 10 to 15 seconds, a bass would come through and eat about 6 of them. So I couldn't get my boat on the water fast enough.
Yeah, I always notice that's going on a couple ways. You'll see some extra birds kind of hanging around the bank. And then if you're throwing anything that's got flash, like a spinnerbait, you'll get those shad fall on that spinnerbait, and that's for me, that's the clue that something's different, something's going on.
Yeah, we noticed that a lot. I pitched a fluke, like I said, and skipped a fluke under docks, and if I didn't get a bite and I was working it out and it get it in the sunshine, and all of a sudden you'd see there'd be 4 or 5 shad following that fluke, and then it get way out in the sunshine and they dart back in underneath the dock. So yeah, they're pretty busy right now. I don't know how long it'll last, but man, this week's been fun so far since about I guess Friday was the first day I started to see it. It's been fun every day since.
Yeah,
definitely. Guys on here, if you got some questions for Eric, take advantage of it while we got him on here. That shad spawn started. It's been going on around here too.
Yeah,
I've got a question for you, Eric, on the in regards to a spinnerbait or a chatterbait on the shad spawn. Have you noticed any difference on? I'm assuming you're using a smaller blade, maybe in the shad spawn, or any difference on trailers for the chatterbait?
Chatterbait, I'll downsize my trailer a little bit. I use a lot of Kitech products, and on a chatterbait, I'll go down to as small as a 2.8. I don't like to go that small because it kind of kills the action of the tail because that hook is so long. So usually a 3.3. And I don't know that the size really matters as much as putting it in the right location. And I actually prefer throwing a chatterbait during the shad spawn over a spinnerbait because I feel like I can work it through a lot of the cover a lot better than I can. You know, a lot of spinnerbaits have a tendency to roll when they hit cover. And a chatterbait I feel like I can work it right through the center of a bush where they're spawning and then let it fall on the shady side of the bush where a bass is probably sitting waiting to ambush a shad.
Okay.
What chatterbait do you use? Do you use the jackhammer?
Jackhammer is the only thing I use. I wish I knew why it was so much better than the rest of them. Must be because it costs $15.
It is better. I think it's a better chatterbait for sure.
Yeah, it's head and shoulders above any of them. I've been out with guys, and you know, I'll fish a jackhammer behind another guide, and he'll be throwing a regular chatterbait, and I can be behind him and outfish him. And I don't know why that is, but just the way that thing comes through the water and the thump it makes just really generates a heck of a lot more strikes than the regular chatterbait does.
Yeah, I think the fish know it's $15. I think is what the deal is.
I think they do too. Yeah. It's like the mega bass versus anything else. They know it's a $25 jerkbait, and that's why they eat it better than anything else.
Yeah, they feel sorry for you. Like, this schlep just dropped $25. I better make his day.
Yeah. I should go ahead and usually it's a 10-inch fish that eats that. You know, he feels bad for it.
Yeah.
The big one's just sitting there looking at it going,
yeah. On that chatterbait, we were fishing shad spawn over here on our local lake of Egypt, a few weeks ago in a tournament. And the reason I asked about the trailer, my partner and I were both throwing a chatterbait during the shad spawn, and he was kicking my butt. And the only thing that was different was our trailer. And he was using and I don't know the name of it, but it was a long, skinnier trailer that had a lot of real, like, subtle action to it. But the shad themselves would really follow his chatterbait, and they weren't following. I was using a skinny dipper on mine, and they weren't following my chatterbait, but the shad were following his, and he was catching all the fish. And as soon as I switched that trailer during that shad spawn, it was just like a light bulb went off. And that's why I asked about that. It was one of those days where one little thing made a big difference.
Oh yeah. I mean, and we see that on Table Rock. And I mean, like I said, I throw a Kitech behind mine, and the guy I fish with mostly prefers Z-Man makes like a razor minnow, I think is what it's called. It's kind of an articulated minnow, and he likes that one a lot better. And there are days when they want that bigger one behind it. You know, that thing's got a lot more bulk, but I don't know that it's got a completely different action. And he's outfished me in the back throwing that while I'm throwing a Kitech on my chatterbait. So it's just maybe the way the shad are moving in the water, or, you know, how the size of the shad, who knows, but there are days they want a different trailer on it for sure.
Yeah, Josh, I was surprised by the difference.
Josh has got a question here. He says, does the shad spawn start again in the evening, or is it later in the night?
You know, I'm out at night or in the evening, so I don't know if they fire back up at night. I generally see them for that from just before daybreak, you know, for that first maybe hour of sunlight in the morning. I'm not out there in the evening. I would imagine anytime it's low light conditions, they probably get back up and do their thing again, but I can't confirm that because I'm here with you guys in the evening. I'm getting ready to go to bed. I've got to be up at 4 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so I don't do a whole lot of night fishing.
Right. I think Joshua, I mean, based on what I saw last night, there was definitely a lot of activity right at dark. Not just as it normally is, but a lot more activity than normal and on into, you know, the actual dark. And I have to think that the shad were up there moving around. It was attracting bass. And then even in the middle of the day, I've been at Lake of the Ozarks where there's a shad spawn going on, and even like 10 o'clock, you know, in the mid morning, you'll still see them. If there's any kind of overhanging trees and there's some shade, you'll see them balled up going in circles or underneath the walkways of the docks.
Yep.
So like Eric was saying, as long as there's some shade and it's that time of the year, they'll continue going into the day. Just not out in the open sunlight like they would at night.
Yeah. Just kind of like Eric was saying earlier, every day is a little different. You got to get a little lucky sometimes and run into them. It's hard to plan it.
Yeah. Stephanie says you can't predict the spawn of any fish. There's just so many variables for any of the spawning fish. And that's, typically, you get that April, you get a push, and then May, you get a bigger push. But you certainly can't go by the water temperatures. A lot of times it seems like Chad go a little bit by the water temperatures. Like before you got on, Eric, we were talking about our local body of water. I was on last Monday. I was on this lake, and it was 67 degrees in the main lake. Yesterday, it was 86 degrees on that same body of water.
Yeah.
Just in 6 days, it jumped up that much.
Yeah, we've seen on Table Rock, we've seen a swing from 1 week to the next of, on average, a 10-degree rise in temperature. From Friday to Saturday afternoon, we went from 76 to we saw 82 and 83 in the afternoon. Now, we had that little front come through yesterday or last night, and we had some colder rain. And when I launched this morning, it was back down to about 75. So it's just going all over the place. But we got to remember that's just that first probably 2 to 3 foot of water. Once you get down below that, the water's going to be a lot more stable and probably a lot cooler right now. Unfortunately, it kind of caught us all off guard over the weekend in the Anglers in Action tournament, and they lost. Anglers lost a lot of fish this weekend because they're pumping that surface temperature water in. We're pulling fish out of water that's probably in the low 70s, and they're putting them in their live wells, and that water's 80 degrees, and they're stressed anyway from just coming off the beds, just coming off the spawn. It was a rough weekend for the fish on Table Rock just because that water temperature jumped up so fast. Luckily, we had enough ice in our cooler and we started to see it happening right away. And we iced our fish down, put some ice in the cooler, and ours all made it in healthy and fine. But there were a lot of fish that were lost over the weekend just because of the massive temperature change in just a 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fished a local tournament this last weekend. Unfortunately, there were several. Same thing. Guys just
it's the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, and
they're stressed from the spawn, and then we stress them out even more. So.
Yeah.
We had ice, and so we were fine. But the guys that didn't have ice, and it didn't take much to kill a fish this last weekend. Yeah, unfortunately.
When you don't think about it, the second weekend of May. If it was a June or July or an August tournament, everybody's got extra ice. Everybody's doing everything they can to take care of the fish. Second week of May, you fish the day before the water was 76. You don't think about it, but then by midday on Saturday, it was up in the 80s, like it normally is in the summertime, and it just shocked those fish, and they're already stressed. So it was really just a bad deal all the way around.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Brock has a question for you. He says, why do Table Rock fish not commit to glide baits after leaving the bottom charging at it 100 miles an hour?
Man, I wish I knew, Brock. It is one of the most frustrating baits I fish on Table Rock, and I love throwing a big glide bait, and I've got a bunch of them, and I wish I could figure out how to get those fish to commit. Especially, you're watching them on active target or live scope, whatever targeting sonar you've got, and you can see them following that glide bait and then just rushing it like they're going to destroy it, and you're braced and ready for it, and they stop. And it doesn't seem to matter what you do, twitch it, rip it, burn it, whatever you do, they just kind of follow it along and they're okay, I'm good, and they leave it. And I don't know, I'm not a great glide bait fisherman by any means. I catch a lot of fish on it, but I've even talked to some of the guys that are really good down here, and they're like, yeah, it's just part of it. I've had the guys will tell me I've had 4 or 5 5-pounders follow that thing to the boat during a tournament and not do anything, and I'll just watch them sit down there and look at it. And I don't know what it takes to make those fish commit. I really don't. I wish I could figure it out. I know I talked to Kevin Brightwell from KGB, and he does a deal where he does a hard rod snap, when it'll actually make those bigger KGB baits spin and turn into the fish. And he says sometimes that'll make them just bite it out of anger. But he said, half of the fish that chase it don't eat it. There's no rhyme or reason of which ones are going to bite it and which ones aren't.
Before we had live scope, we didn't realize that well over half the fish chase our baits.
Yes.
We weren't seeing it happen, but it was happening the whole time.
Exactly. It can be maddening. you know, to see a fish out there in front of you, throw it at him and have him rush it and then follow it for a while and then just swim off. And it's like, okay, what did I do wrong? And that was probably happening for the last 30 years.
Yep. Stephanie says, is there a shad spawn once a year, or do they spawn twice in certain geographic areas?
Sometimes on Table Rock, sometimes they'll spawn twice. Yeah. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, we actually had 3 shad spawns because we had a weird weather year where the water temperature came up, they spawned, it dropped, and then it came back up again, and we had another spawn, and then we had another spawn in the fall when the water temperature dropped. Table Rock is thick with shad right now. Both threadfin and gizzard shad. There's millions and millions of shad in that lake because we haven't had a shad kill in probably 10 or 15 years. And it's just, it was amazing. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, we had 3 shad spawns in 1 year.
Wow.
Anybody experimented with the stealth blade chatterbait?
I have.
Not me. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I have. I haven't figured it out. I don't know what the niche is. It doesn't, you know, the nice thing about the jackhammer is it starts right up, you know, and it's active right away. That stealth blade, it's too stealthy. It literally will quit vibrating for me. And so I don't know if I'm not using the right pound test, or I fished it long enough to get frustrated by it and just went back to the jackhammer. But I know that guys catch fish on it, so I just haven't figured it out yet. But I have thrown it a little bit. Yeah,
got reports of a lot of fish lost at the pipefitters tournament at Lake of the Ozarks this weekend.
Yeah,
like you said, nobody's expecting
all over the
mid-80-degree water temps right now.
Hey, I wanted to, you know, Stephanie was asking about the spawn being drawn out, and you can't really pinpoint it. One interesting anecdote to that is the further north you go, the more you can pinpoint the spawn, because the fish up north don't have the luxury of time. You know, fish from here south they have a lot of time for them to spawn and hatch and for the fry to develop. But the further north you go, as soon as that ice goes out, the fish don't mess around. 3 weeks ago, ice went out in Minnesota, and yesterday I had reports of fish on beds because of the full moon. And so the further north you go, they just kind of do it when they have to, but that the further south you go, the more spread out it'll be, and the more what Stephanie said is true. But when my cousin James called me yesterday, he had a high school day. He was like, "Yeah, we were fishing for bedfish," and I was like, "What? The ice just went out?" He's like, "Yeah, well, we just had a full moon."
Yeah, I've heard they position themselves under the ice in the pre-spawn areas, and as soon as it melts, they just boom, they go right up there.
Yeah, they're moving by the calendar and by the photo period, not by water temperature up there. 100%.
Yeah. Well, let's get a couple more questions in here real quick, Eric, and then we'll let you go because I know you got to be up really early. Bassin with Matt says, "What's your best 5 pre-spawn and spawn baits?"
For Table Rock, 5 baits. Pre-spawn, I like to throw a crankbait quite a bit. Either a rock crawler or wigglewort. Throw a jig 12 months out of the year. Catch a lot of fish on a smaller jig, finesse jig like a spider jig. I catch a lot of fish on a shaky head. I mean, quite a few fish on a shaky head, both pre-spawn and post-spawn. Tube's a good post-spawn and spawn bait. What is that, 4? I'm trying to think of a 5th one for pre-spawn. I mean, we catch quite a few fish on spinnerbait pre-spawn as well. So I guess that'd be the best pre-spawn. As far as, you know, sight fishing when the bass are on beds, I pretty much limit it to a very light shaky head, like a 3/16 with a finesse worm on it, something relatively small, unless the water is really dirty. Our water is so crystal clear that I find that like you go down south, guys use a lot of whites and bright colors. I use more like watermelons and watermelon reds or some green pumpkin on a light shaky head is what I have the best success for most sight fishing. The only difference to that is if I'm sight fishing for smallmouth, I use a pink tube, an actual Pepto-Bismol pink tube. And I don't know what it is about pink on table rock and smallmouth, but they hate it. And you don't even have to be accurate with a pink tube on a smallmouth on a bed on table rock. If it gets anywhere in that circle, they will come over and destroy it. They hate it. Don't know what it's supposed to look like. I'm sorry?
And you can see it a little bit too.
Yeah, you can see it a lot. I mean, you can see everything on table rock unless they're spawning, we do have fish that'll spawn as deep as 12 feet deep. But, unless they're spawning, on a normal year, you can see beds in 10 foot crystal clear. It's no problem to see them 10 foot down, and you can see your bait and see how the fish reacts and watch it turn and flash on it and try to intimidate it off the bed before they eat it. But just a lightweight finesse jig really seems to be the best thing, or a lightweight shaky head with a small finesse worm on it, just a regular 4-inch zoom or whatever finesse worm you like to throw, and a very neutral color seems to be our best spawn bait, sight fishing bait on table rock.
Is that your as a guide, is that your preferred bait to put in your clients' hands, is the shaky head, just if hey, you gotta go catch some fish?
Yeah, I mean, I don't sight fish with clients. It's too frustrating, and usually I don't have just one guy. Normally I've got 2 or 3 guys in the boat. So it's like, okay, you come up here and you and I are going to stare at this fish for 2 hours and try to get him to bite.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you stand back there and just fan cast off the back of the boat and try not to get tangled in my poles. Sight fishing and guiding doesn't work, but day in, day out, either a Ned rig or a shaky head or a tube from middle of April through probably the second week of June, that's our bread and butter. That's how we catch most of the fish.
I get you. My clients, I'm a little lucky on Mille Lacs. They're pretty easy to catch. So what we would usually do is I would go bed fishing for half a day, and then we'd go do something else the other half of the day, and we'd just literally take turns.
Sure.
But that's silly Ned rig. And if the Ned rig didn't work, the drop shot would. Then have lunch and go do something else the second half of the day. But that Ned rig, if you got to catch a fish, kind of hard to beat for up where I fish. Really hard.
Pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's just a little turd worm dragging on the bottom. Looks like a baby crawdad, so they eat it just about anywhere.
Yeah. That the BFL that I fished a week ago or so, exactly what you said, a 3/16 ounce shaky head. I was throwing that Jewel Pro shaky head. I really like that one. I really like that. I'm always kind of looking for a better tool, and I started fishing that exact head. It's been a couple months ago, and right now that's my go-to, because I prefer one without a keeper, just because I think without the screw lock, I think you get a lot more hook gap in there, and that at first glance it doesn't look like that keeper system on that shaky head is going to do what it needs to do, but it oddly enough it holds that worm on there really well.
Yeah, it's the same one as that's on the squirrel head, which is the 1/4 ounce, more of a football head shape. And that one, I mean, just a little trick, once you run your worm up there, you turn it 180 degrees and it locks it on there. I mean, that little piece of wire will hold that worm on, and it does give you a much wider gap, and it's got that really sharp light wire hook, which is great for sight fishing.
We got Jack Ux on here. He said he's listening and he's learning.
I know that guy. I've known that guy for 25 years, I think.
Yeah, I think when I reached out to him originally about coming on and doing a couple fishing reports, he sent me your way for a table rock. So good guy. We're going to have him on probably next month. He's going to jump on here and give us a Lake of the Ozarks report. But yeah, another thing with that shaky head is if they're not biting a green pumpkin, go to a watermelon. Little watermelon red. I learned that in that BFL. I fished I was fishing. I made 2 adjustments. I was fishing a 1/4 ounce shaky head with a green pumpkin worm. Was not getting bit, and I was getting a lot of that algae. You know, that algae that's on the
moss
right now. Yeah. And I switched up to a 3/16 with the green pumpkin. Still wasn't getting bit, and then I went to a watermelon red on that same 3/16 ounce head, and I started getting bites. So even though green pumpkin and watermelon look somewhat similar, you know, at first glance, those fish, when that water visibility is like 12 foot, they can tell a difference, and they'll pick up one and leave the other one laying on the bottom.
Sometimes that little bit of red flash or even just black flake in a worm makes a huge difference on this lake. You know, it's just, they get finicky sometimes. You know, today was post spawn after the full blood moon or whatever the heck it was, and it was a little bit tough today, and we had to mess around a little bit and switch up. And normally I've been catching them on a squirrel head with a Senko, and they were having none of it today, and we went down to actually putting a little sweet beaver, a smallie beaver on there in watermelon red, and we finally started catching some fish. So it was just a matter of just making those adjustments to get something that was the right size that they wanted to eat today, and hopefully they're a little better tomorrow.
I think Darius is kind of ribbing you, Ron. He says those northern bass are so easy they'll bite a piece of fescue on a hook.
There's a little truth to that on some days, but other days it's just like everywhere.
It's a special place up there in the Northland.
It is.
Well, man, we'll let you go, Eric. I know you got to get up early. Thanks for jumping on here. Really appreciate it. If people want to find you, how can they get a hold of you?
Basically, they can reach out to me personally at focusfishing.com, or if they want to check out what's going on Table Rock, we've got daily reports, weekly reports, all kinds of videos and stuff. Check that out on tablerockfishingintel.com. We put something up, at least one piece of content up there every day, and like this past weekend with everything going on, I think we wound up Saturday and Sunday, we had like 6 or 8 different reports. We had tournament reports, tournament results. So just a lot of information about Table Rock. Either way, they can reach out on either of those 2 sites and get a hold of me either way.
Yeah, you guys have been doing a really good job on that. I've been following that.
Thank you.
So appreciate that information, and good 100%. Luck tomorrow on your guide trip, man.
You bet. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. We'll see you.
See ya. All right, good stuff, man. Eric's always bringing the juice, man. A lot of good knowledge. I can't wait to get back down to Table Rock after fishing the last 3 BFLs in the Ozark Division on Table Rock. I was just kind of starting to get a taste for it, and I probably won't get down there until next year this time. So, unfortunately, it's 5 hours away for me. Let's see if we got anything on here. Yeah, Big Show says green pumpkin, watermelon, black and blue. That's really, I mean, I'm kind of usually around here for me. It's you definitely got to have green pumpkin and June bug, and then I kind of started bringing black in the mix. Ron kind of showed me, you know, black's another color that you need to have in the box. But yeah, kind of keeping it simple.
Yep. Yeah, it's better to have the wrong color and throw in the right place than have the right color and throw in the wrong place. So
yeah,
just keep it simple. That being said, I got every color known to man on the wall in the garage.
I do too. I just cleaned my boat out like about a month ago, and I was looking through it last night, and I'm like, crap, it needs cleaned out again. I've been just steadily adding, you know, a couple bags of plastics here and a couple crankbaits here, and now it's like it's almost full again. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I got to move some of the winter stuff out.
Yeah,
it's constant battle.
It never ends, and it never is 100% the way you want it.
Right.
It just oh well.
Good anybody on here in the comment section have some fishing reports from your local area? If you got some, leave them on here. I'd like to read them off and let everybody know if they're planning on getting out, what's kind of going on. I think almost every place right now is in that tail end of the spawn and kind of post spawn. I think from what I've been seeing, yesterday I caught a lot of fish on a swim jig. I'm real impressed with this. Let's see. I brought it in here. I'm going to show it to you guys. This is a Cumberland Pro Lures. It's their Bama swim jig, and it's kind of designed for that Alabama shake. which is a technique, you know, where you really shake your rod tip. And I'll probably do a video on that. But I got some of these in the mail the other day, and I took them out yesterday for the first time. And right now the swim jig is going on. I caught a lot of fish, had a lot of bites, just a lot of interest in a shaky head right now. And I was throwing this color right here. It's called Houdini, which I'd never really thrown. I mean, the Reactions Innovations Skinny Dipper, they make a Houdini. That's kind of a popular swim bait, but I'd never thrown a Houdini colored swim jig. And they were crushing this. And we were trying to figure out, Jerry was throwing a swim jig as well on the back of the boat. And he was catching a fish every now and then, but I was catching probably, I don't know, it seemed like I was getting like 5 or 6 bites to his one bite on this one. And we were trying to figure out if it's got something to do with the rattle. This thing's got a single rattle in it. And as you're shaking that rod tip, it's getting it's like a little one knocker. It's making just a little click. And it's a red rattle. You know, I don't know how much that comes into play. Fish are supposed to be attracted to red, but we were trying to figure out if that little bit of rattling noise was making the fish track my bait and not track Jerry's. So I'm going to be playing around with this a lot more, but I was very impressed with this jig so far. First day of testing it out. It skips really good. I was able to skip underneath overhanging trees, and this is a 1/4 ounce. So I was throwing it like basically 0 to 5 foot. And this thing really floats. I got like a full-size rage crawl on there. So you can really, it's got that flat surface area on there. So you can really slow roll it around. You know, we were fishing around bluegill beds. That's kind of the pattern that we were finding. If we would get an area where we saw the bluegill beds, you could swim this swim jig around those bluegill beds, and you'd get a bite just about every little stretch of bluegill beds that you come on to. And then you'd go, if you just kept fishing, you wouldn't really get a bite for a long time. And once you started getting around the bluegill, you'd start getting a bite. But swim jig right now, it's time. This is probably my favorite time of the year to start throwing that swim jig. Now I don't know, right now for the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, it seems like the swim jig can be magic, you know, one reason is it represents a bluegill really well, but the other reason I think is I'm always kind of sensitive to fishing pressure and what everybody's been throwing all spring. And there's been a lot of chatterbaits and a lot of spinnerbaits going through the water column for the last, since March, basically. But not as many people throw that swim jig. So I don't think they're as tuned in to hearing and feeling the swim jig as they are, you know, the thumping of a chatterbait and the flash of a spinnerbait. And you can still catch them on both of those baits without a doubt. And then you throw that little rattle in there on that Bama swim jig, and I don't know, it's something just a little bit different. It seemed to be working really good. I was throwing that Houdini color.
I caught my fish on Grassy in the tournament on a swim jig.
Okay.
And I went a little old school, though, a little different. It's kind of funny, the swim jig's a thing now, but back in the 80s, early 90s, when Crab Orchard was at its peak, and it had a lot of Crab Orchard weed in it, that's what you did all summer long, is you threw a swim jig through that Crab Orchard grass. And it was basically a white one or a black one, just depending on the day. And so I was throwing a white swim jig at Grassy, 1/4 ounce. And then for the trailer, I was using a white piece of pork, a number 11 pork chunk, white. And then on the shank of the hook, I put a white, half of a Max Scent Ned rig or Ned bait on the shank of the hook. And that thing, you could throw it out there and it would almost float. It was like you could almost work it like a fluke. And you could rip that through the weeds, and we caught our early fish that way. Probably should have just kept doing it all day. And then yesterday at Cedar, I caught some on the exact same. Just like you said, it's a little bit more subtle than a chatterbait and a spinnerbait, and then on Cedar too, because of all the algae. It comes through the algae and stuff fairly well, and you know, spinnerbait and chatterbait glob up in that stuff. So definitely, Gabe's telling you the right thing there with that swim bait this time of year, right now.
Yeah, I got some I have some white chunks somewhere and I couldn't find them. So I ordered some more white chunks and I just got them in the mail today. So I'm going to be I'm going to put a white chunk on next time I go out and play around with that. So you can, like you said, you can really glide that. Sometimes they want that. They don't want the crazy legs, but they still want that gliding action, where that's kind of what the chunk does for you.
And very, very subtle little leg action, and with the shad spawn going on too, it kind of fits right in with that.
Right.
But it's kind of fun. I was fishing memories, just throw it as far as you could and reel it back, and it's a nice change of pace. And it won't be long. We'll be all out there on the end of the points with a worm or a jig or something dragging. So get this shallow bite in while we can.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to remind myself is I keep looking out there deep, but pretty soon that's going to be the only place to look is out deep. So I need to enjoy the shallow bite while it's still up there. I caught my first frogfish yesterday, though, believe it or not. The believe it or not part is that it's taken me that long to catch my first frogfish, but it absolutely smoked a frog. It was a great bite.
There you go.
Yeah, I was throwing that. One of my favorite frogs is just the Spro. I think it's the Bronzeye 64, the popping version.
Popping one.
Yeah, man, that's a good one right now.
That's
the
a good
killer
color.
gill, killer gill's, in my opinion, one of the best three. I just dripped water on my computer too. That thing's still wet from yesterday. Yeah, but that one right there, killer gill. You guys don't have a killer gill. That's a good one. But getting that first frog bite of the year is pretty exciting, especially when you're around bluegill beds and it just comes out of nowhere and it was a classic textbook bite. Just crushed it. And
I went the other direction yesterday after I caught some swim jig fish, and then I was like, well, I gotta throw a power worm. I mean, it's getting hot out.
Yeah,
you know me. And my first cast with the power worm, I caught one. I was like, oh, good Lord, this is all we're doing from now till October. And then I didn't catch many. I caught a few after that, but they weren't.
Did you see they have an 8.5-inch power worm?
Yeah, I've got a garage full of them.
Okay, I guess I missed the memo on that. I just discovered them about a month ago.
It hasn't replaced, and it's no secret. Anyone that knows me, the 10-inch worm it's no secret either. But I've always just kind of stuck with the 7-inch power worm, and it works good for you. Yeah, it works for me, and I have confidence in it, which is more important than anything. But I bought one that 8-inch or 8.5 or whatever it is came out. I bought a bunch of them, but the profile it's a little thicker worm. It's a little different profile, and it just hasn't replaced my 7-inch worm. So it probably doesn't make a bit of difference really. Fish, just get around them. So it won't be long. This heat keeps up. They're going to get out there sooner rather than later.
I caught one last night out deep. That was a good solid fish out in that 14-foot, something like that.
Yeah. So the thing that can happen this time here, there's no thermocline yet. So if they want to, there'll be a few that will get really deep right now. Especially some of those females that spawned, a few weeks ago or whatever. There'll be some out in that 20 to 25 foot range. There's no thermocline to keep them from getting down there. And I looked out there, but I just didn't see, there wasn't much food out there. All the food right now seems to be up on the bank. The bluegill spawn and the shad spawn's all in high gear, and I couldn't find much out deep, but that will happen sometimes in the post spawn. They'll get out a little deeper, and then they'll get kind of forced shallower when the thermocline sets up.
And that bite, that offshore bite, will happen. It can literally happen just in a couple days. Like you'll scan and you won't see them, and then 2 days later they'll just be all over it.
It doesn't take them long you just watching them on active target. or your live scope, I mean, you see how much they can move around in 3 minutes while you're watching them. I mean, in one day they can swim from, you know, their spawning grounds out to wherever they want to go, or vice versa. It doesn't take them long.
I had a fish last night. I was throwing this, so I had that 1/4 ounce swim jig for throwing up shallow, and then I had like a 3/8 ounce, and this is they call this O shad, so it's kind of like the green pumpkin shad concept. But this was 3/8 ounce with a little dipper on there, and I was throwing this out a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Watching fish on the live scope, and I had a fish swam over to that swim bait faster than I thought a fish could actually swim, and it literally swam probably 20 feet in like a half a second. I mean, it just
it's just like
a torpedo.
It looks like an asteroid on your screen.
Yeah, it shocked me because it moved so fast. I wasn't expecting it. You know, normally they kind of mosey over towards it, and then they either bite it or they swim away. This thing just shot over 100 miles an hour, looked at it, and just peeled away.
Yeah, and you have a heart attack, and you're like, "What just happened?"
Yeah, did I move my rod wrong? Did I speed it up? Did I slow? Yeah, that's just what they do.
Yeah, it's they do whatever they want when they want to. That's
JB may be eating fajitas.
Is he coaching tonight?
He was on here a little bit right before Eric went on. He was on here in the queue, but I didn't want to we didn't need 4 people on here with a delay and stuff. So he's taking it easy. Hopefully he got his washer fixed. He had a little bit of a washer leak.
Yuck.
Have you heard anything about Kincaid?
No, I haven't. I haven't been over there at all. I know that George Daly, running the USA Bass at Kincaid, he's had 2 events. He's drawn over 60 boats for both events.
That's good. Really good.
George is doing a great job. George Daly. Check out George Daly's USA Bass on Kincaid. He runs a great circuit. He goes above and beyond what USA Bass requires, and he actually gives extras away and trophies and stuff you won't see at the other USA Bass and stuff. And I've seen the results. They're catching fish over there. And I'm sure it's the same thing over there as everywhere else, you know, post spawn, end of spawn, post spawn, shad spawn, so on and so forth. But I have not been over there myself, so I can't say.
That's cool. Kevin had a little Lake of the Ozarks report. Dave said the square bill bite was on at Harrisburg Reservoir today. Got Phil Crowfoot in here, man. Good to see you in here. We had Eric Prey on a little bit ago. He was dropping some pretty good knowledge on Table Rock. So you could check out the playback if you want to catch that. You might have already been on here a little bit behind on the questions, but Phil's doing really good in the BFLs. He's fishing down there. I think he's sitting pretty good in the points. Wapapello, Doug says, WAP has been high but coming down fast. Fish are in the creeks, in the bushes, so pitching plastics and jigs will catch them if you cover enough water. That's the whole key, is covering water. Like Eric was saying, you'll find a little stretch where you catch 6 or 7, and then you'll go a mile. Just same thing with like punching grass. It's the same way. It all works out the same. And
Cedar was that way for me yesterday. Catch them in kind of little bunches.
Josh has been catching them on finesse swim baits, which is cool. I was thinking about rigging up a swim bait tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow. I'll probably see you and Hunter out there tomorrow.
We're gonna be out there tournament hours tomorrow. So basically 7 to 3, and see what happens.
Zane says he's had some good frog blow-ups, fishing around bluegill beds on Egypt.
Yeah.
Popper bite is on too. Yeah, I got a popper tied on for sure. I mean, I kind of use that popping frog a little bit around Cedar just because of the grass, but that chug bug. I put the chug bugs in the boat. I put my topwater box in the boat. I got the chug bugs ready to go because that's become one of my favorite poppers. Started last year.
Oh.
So Josh says,
It's kind of the
tips on the Mega Bass Battalion.
I
don't, Josh. I don't know what that is either.
Kind of the same fishing report everywhere right now. Because if whatever was lagging behind got caught up this last week in that 90-degree weather.
Yeah, that's why I was really looked out deep yesterday, and
yeah, it's coming.
I'm gonna go look again tomorrow.
We've got our first Wednesday nighter right around the corner, buddy.
The 25th. It's coming up quick.
Yeah, it's a week from this Wednesday.
I know. I'm gonna come over to your house and steal all your power worms.
You'd have to bring a truck.
You got some buried in the backyard too, man. I know.
I got a bunch of them. Well, last year it's been so hard to get stuff from time to time. When you see something you're going to use, you tend to order more of it than what you need. Because there was some period you couldn't get the power worm I wanted, and by gosh, when I found them, I ordered them. Now you can kind of get them again, so it's not a big deal. But
I ordered.
Man, that's so true, Stephanie.
Yeah,
so true.
That used to be a really good secret down there at Wapapello, flipping the Zoom Fat Albert grub on a like a quarter-ounce weight.
I'll guarantee you go down any of these lakes right now and catch one on a grub. And I've got a box full of them, and I don't throw them.
Yeah, I don't either. It's kind of the small swim baits, the Kitech and stuff is taking the place of the grub.
Yeah.
Let's see. Just kind of checking out some of these comments. Matt Martin said that crappie fishing was slow at Wren on Sunday. He says he thinks the crappie spawn is over. Yeah, Hunter's on the water quite a bit, Stephanie. I think he lives pretty close to the lake, so he can just jump on the water for a couple hours whenever he wants to.
Yeah.
Unlike some of us that have to drive an hour and 15 minutes to get to the lake.
I'm going to take full advantage of Hunter tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell him, take the front, take me your fish.
Anything about Pyramid? I haven't been over to Pyramid in, gosh, I don't know if I've even been over there this. Yeah, I think I was over there. Yeah, I was over there. I had a really good spinnerbait bite. I was throwing that Dream Express spinnerbait, the treasure hunt that one day. But that's been like a month and a half ago.
Hey, did you never send you my spinnerbaits?
He did not.
Oh,
he did not.
I'm going to send him a message.
Yeah. Yeah, you send him a message, I'll send him a message. He was supposed to be sending some more stuff. He's got some pretty sneaky things. He's always tinkering around. He was working on a shorter, like a kind of a finesse type spinnerbait. It was a shorter arm spinnerbait. I think I saw that on Facebook the last couple of days.
I think I saw it too. Yeah. All the stuff he makes looks fabulous.
It really does. I really want to get some of those, that Franken jig, which is that little scrounger head that he came up with.
The little square thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's deadly coming up as soon as those fish start moving offshore like that. They start spinning and tracking those shad. That can be the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phil, I agree with you. That's kind of been my go-to, the Zumo Monster for forever. It's hard to beat. I like plum.
It's a good. Yeah, it's an old plum, old monster. Yeah.
Been around forever. Or plum apples, another color that I like quite a bit. And you can, with that old monster, man, you can fish it Texas rig. You can fish it on a shaky head, Carolina rig. You can do a lot with that thing.
It's not too thick.
No.
Yeah.
Darius said he's been catching some smallmouth on Kentucky Lake, the chatterbait or 1 ounce spinnerbait.
Night fishing for smallmouth.
Yeah. Did you ever do that at Mille Lacs?
No, you're not allowed to.
Oh.
You have to, and it's not a smallmouth rule per se. You have to be off the water. Walleye are very vulnerable at night, and so they have a rule up there. I can't remember the time frame, but basically from June through September, they do not allow anyone on the water after 10 o'clock. So you really can't. And it's more of a walleye thing that just happens to. But to be honest with you, after 14 hours of daylight of catching whatever you want during the day, you don't need to up there. Here we kind of, in the summer, sometimes you kind of need to night fish to stay successful. Up there, you don't have to. I mean, you can catch them at night, but as you saw when you were up there, you can go have breakfast at the Spotlight Cafe and roll it to the ramp at 10:45 and be just fine.
Man, I'm glad I got a lot of that on video because that was a fabulous trip. A lot of really good memories.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
it may happen again. Who knows?
Oh, it better. It's happening for me in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna jump in the back of your truck one of these years before you quit doing it.
Come on.
Josh said he was at Pyramid Saturday. Water temps were mid-70s. Giant carp are spawning. That's something that was going on last week on Cedar. Is those carp were just thrashing. Yeah, they were everywhere, especially coming out of Pomona. All those coves on the north side, the first 3 or 4 or 5 coves coming out.
Yeah.
All that good-looking grass because there's some mats. There's some good mats starting to build over there, but those carp were just
turn it up,
just trashing it. So, but I didn't really, of course, I didn't fish that same stuff yesterday. But I didn't hear a lot of that going on in the other areas we were fishing. So maybe that's kind of started to mellow out. I don't know. Did you hear the carp going off over there?
No, I saw a couple yesterday. I didn't see.
I saw some cruising, but I didn't see them like busting.
Yeah,
and stuff.
I haven't seen them do. I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen that. That can be a pattern. When those carp get up on the bank and start doing whatever it is they're doing, spawning, they'll chase the bluegill and shad or crayfish or whatever's living up on the bank. They'll chase them out of there, and the bass sometimes will sit out behind the carp, and they'll pick off whatever the carp are chasing out. They used to be a big pattern at Crab Orchard. You can really take advantage of it. It's kind of like boats going up and down, how the boat wake will stir them up and you can catch them in the boat wake. Kind of the same thing.
That makes a lot of sense. Of course, I think most of those fish over there right now they've already got a smorgasbord with those bluegill beds.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
There should not be any hungry fish over there right now. If they're hungry, it's their choice.
Let's touch on some patterns that are going to be coming up here, that are happening. We kind of touched on what's happening right now, but maybe what do you expect to be going on like in the next month as the fish get off the beds, start moving to their post spawn, and then on out to their summer.
I think as soon as you see the shad show up more, and it's they're how it is, they're going to be around their food. As soon as the shad kind of get done playing up on the bank, and you start to see those out, as soon as they have a food source out, it could happen tomorrow. It's just like you said, it can happen literally overnight. You're going to see them start to get up on the points or out cruising out in the middle of the bays and coves. But you're going to start to see that quote unquote summer thing start to happen, and it'll be spread out until there's a thermocline, and then as the thermocline sets up, it'll condense all of that. But I anticipate sooner rather than later them more fish being off the bank. My philosophy in general, when fish are moving spring or fall or like this, I always like to kind of be where they're going as opposed to behind them. So it's going to be really soon for me that I'm out spending more and more time fishing the points or creek channel ledges or brush piles out from spawning coves, someplace that they would fall back to. You'll see my boat more in those places here really soon. Knowing that at least if they're not there yet, they're coming to me. And there's some fish out there already. You said you caught a couple, but they're going to be every day. There'll be more and more fish that kind of go that direction. So, and I just prefer to fish that way. It's just, and I don't know about you. I'm kind of ready to get off the bank. We've been on the bank since March, so I'm ready to do something.
What's up, Rich? Yeah, Eric was on here for about 30 minutes. He had a 3 a.m. wake up call. He's got a guided trip in the morning, so he was nice enough to stay on here for a little bit. Yeah, check out the replay. I noticed that I caught some fish that were post spawny looking, not real sunken in, just kind of flat bellied. But then I caught some fish that were fat, and I don't know.
That's good.
I think they had fed up on that shad spawn is what I was speculating. I mean, it didn't seem like their tails were jacked up or anything, but they were plump.
And you could still have a few straggler pre-spawn too, I suppose.
Yeah,
that's not out of the question.
Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly when they're
not all fish
full of shad.
All fish spawn every year either. A certain percentage of fish never spawn. My biologist buddy, who was just here a couple of weeks ago, he tells me, depending on the body of the water and the condition of the lake, maybe 70% of the fish spawn out of the adult population. And if the lake's really healthy, less fish will spawn. I don't know how they know that. And if the lake's hurting and it needs fish, more of the percentage of the adult population will spawn. And again, I don't know how the fish know that, but that's what he says. And I'm not a biologist, so I don't have any ability to argue with him. So
yeah, Mother Nature, it seems to take care of itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Andy says, where do I find information on boat motor regulations for Southern Illinois?
It'll be site specific. For Carbondale, that would be the city on the Carbondale city page, I believe, for the Carbondale ramp. And at the Pomona ramp, that would be the Shawnee National Forest web page, I assume, for Cedar Lake. Pyramid State Park, I assume that's under the IDNR. I got a question on Pyramid. On Super Lake, is there a horsepower or is it idle?
It's idle.
It's idle. So any boat.
Any boat, idle speed only. Even if you have a 9.9, you're still supposed to operate it at idle speed.
Still supposed to idle. Okay.
It's kind of frustrating, but that's the way it is. And I think that's all the lakes over there.
Okay, so you can put a big boat in and fish.
Yep.
And run your motor when you're idling. So that's good to know.
It is. It keeps, there's small lakes, and it is nice that nobody's really running around there. I mean, there's people that run around on the lake, of course, and then that Peabody Kings River or River King up there, that's a strip pit. I think it's a 10 horsepower limit. That's the other strip pits that are up there by New Athens, I believe.
Okay.
So I've been up there once, but you can run a 10 horsepower, a 9.9 on those lakes.
Yeah, and for Andy, for the refuge regulations, that'll be on the Crab Orchard National Wildlife Refuge website. Devil's Kitchen, and here's the nice thing about Devil's Kitchen and Grassy. It's a 10-horse lake, but they will allow you to use your big motor to load and unload your boat. Now they won't at Cedar, but at Grassy and DK, you can use your big motor to load and unload your boat. If you're putting a big boat in there to fish. So that's the hardest part, is loading and unloading your boat if you got a big boat on these 10-horse lakes.
Yeah, Brad says 10 horse on Peabody is correct, which is nice. I wish it, you can only regulate one way or the other, but it would be nice if Pyramid was 10 horsepower or less, or 9.9 or less. You could run, and then anything bigger, no wake. That's how a lot of the lakes are here in Missouri. The smaller lakes like Lake Gerardo, 10 horsepower, you can run, but anything over 10 is idle only. I like that combination.
There you go.
Because it's a long idle on Pyramid, like super.
You got to remember, this is Illinois. We don't ever do anything right over here.
Yeah.
Missouri's a little better run than our state.
Well, at least you have cheap gas prices over there.
Yeah.
I have not fished the Burning Star strip pitch. You got me curious, though. I need to probably Google that, see where that's at. Where's that at, Josh? Part of the country. I tell you what, Martin, you're right. I'm glad I have a little boat because it burns a whole lot less fuel actually pulling it to and from the lake. And we've said this many times, but I can fish. You can fish all day on a gallon of gas, a gallon and a half of gas. If you're really covering some water. Yeah. Where a bigger boat, you're going to burn through. You can burn through 10 gallons. Especially my boat is an 02 Ranger 520, and I've got that old VMAX on there. It's a 2-stroke. It's got the oil mix. It burns through some oil and it burns through some fuel.
I don't want to go too far down that wormhole, but you wonder. It doesn't seem to have made any difference yet. Guys are still fishing. But you wonder at what point, sooner or later, there's going to be a tipping point where guys start to change their behavior. I don't even add it up what it cost me because I don't want to know. Between my truck and my boat. And if it stays the way it is, I won't change anything. But it's affecting people, and it's, but yeah, the John boat's a nice escape from the cost of what the big boat is.
Yeah, I don't know what that point is. I always thought it was like $4 where people start. I was talking with Jerry about this yesterday. We were kind of having that chat on the way to the lake. You always see kind of an uptick in crime in the summertime. And once again, we won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but you see an uptick in crime in the summertime. And then if you add like high gas prices on top of that, it's got to be even that much tighter for just your average family. So somebody that may just fish once a month, just casually, they may not make that trip just because they don't have the extra money to spend.
Or just fish around home instead of traveling somewhere, or
just pond hop, fish farm ponds and stuff.
And then the other thing, the tournaments, how much you want to spend to go win $500? It's so you wonder if it doesn't seem to have affected anything yet, but you just wonder. So I hope it corrects itself a little bit.
Yeah, especially a lake like, Darius's home lake, Kentucky Lake. You can burn some gas on Kentucky Lake.
Yeah, and then stop and get some more and burn it again.
Yeah, Rich says not having a boat this spring is saving him a ton of money.
Does he not? I thought he bought one.
Yeah, he sold his boat, and I don't know, man. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. I think he's getting an aluminum boat. I think he's going to go to a 16-footer.
How in the hell did you get through opener without a boat, Hello Bass?
He's been bank fishing. He's got one of those big deep sea rods. He's making those real long casts out there on those reefs. I think he's got something.
I thought he bought one. I guess not.
Maybe he did. It's not arrived. He's got one. It's on the way. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's another story, is getting stuff. You can order stuff, but getting stuff's a whole nother.
my buddy Mike, my travel partner Mike, not only did we have a flat tire on the way to Table Rock, but the morning of the tournament, we had that 2 hour and 15-minute fog delay. And he had to idle over from Mill Creek, which is where we were staying at. We had a slip there. It was about a 5 mile idle. But when he got, we got into the marina and everybody's just tied up chatting. And so they start the tournament at 8:15. It was supposed to start at 6. So he's idling out to take off. And when he tries to put it on plane, it won't go above no wake. And all of a sudden, all the bells and whistles start going off. He had like this annoying beep started going off. Well, something screwed up, right?
Limp mode.
Yeah. Long story short, his actuator went out.
Oh, crap.
And it was going to be July before he could get the part to get it fixed.
Yeah.
Yep. So he's been working on making phone calls, and he found one down at Boatworks at Lake of the Ozarks. They had one. So he got scheduled to get it serviced, I think, the first week in June. But
he's lucky.
He's very, very fortunate because it would have been, 2 months. There's a 2 months delay on that part.
Well, I came home from Mille Lacs, and I don't know if you remember, my lower unit went out right when I got back home from Mille Lacs last year.
Right.
And when I first started inquiring about getting it fixed, once I figured out what was wrong, the first thing the mechanic told me is it might be a year. I was like, what? I can't, I started having withdrawals. I can't do that.
A year.
And yeah, that's first he said it might be a year before you get a lower unit. I was like, no. And I freaked out. Well, as it turned out, but it was still 6 weeks. I was without my big boat for 6 weeks, which anymore, that's just common. Yeah. So I was very fortunate to get it fixed in a semi-timely manner.
Josh, that's a good point. I mean, I almost think everybody should have a kayak too. I need to get one. Actually, when we get out to our new house, I'm going to have a whole lot more room, and I'll definitely have a kayak. It's free. You just got to get up and go to the Spotlight Cafe and eat you like 3 eggs and toast and oatmeal and biscuits and
big old pancake and whatever else you had.
Some sausage. You can paddle all day.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Rich has got the right idea. Yeah, man, that's a big deal up there in Jersey. Those torpedoes, like the electric outboards. I see why.
Yeah, that day's probably coming, but
Jim's got a solid point right here. He says typically fishermen's wives change their behavior more than gas prices do. That's probably a t-shirt. I'm thinking that's a t-shirt.
Yeah. Which in turn changes the fisherman's behavior. Or if it doesn't, then there's usually a price to pay.
Yeah, Brock, that'd be a sight, man. That'd be a sight. Man, those kayaks are pretty stable, though. We had Chad on here, and he was talking about it. He fishes standing up almost the whole day in those kayaks, and I haven't been in one of those type of kayaks. The only kayaks I've been in are the cheaper sit on top, and then the ones with the cavity that you put your legs in, which I don't like those at all. I just feel like I need to be able to bail if it's time to bail. And I've had a lot of experience in a canoe, and I do not like canoes. I just don't feel comfortable in a canoe, especially standing up. I fly fish out of a canoe, standing up, and a lot can go wrong really fast. You hit the wrong, a little bit of wind, or you hit something, and you're in the drink just instantly in a canoe. But they do make some really stable kayaks.
What time you getting down in the water tomorrow?
Geez, I keep thinking in my head I want to witness that shad spawn. Right now, tentatively, probably about the same time you guys are going to be there, 6:37. So you'll probably see me there at 9, which is the way it always works. I have high expectations. If I can get to bed, I can probably make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh. Well, man, let's wrap this up, Ron.
Yeah.
We covered a few topics.
I had supper on the stove for an hour and a half.
Well, it's good. It's good talking to you, man. Maybe I'll probably run into you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll be out there. We're of course going to put in the Carbondale side, but we'll run into you somewhere.
Yeah, I'll be the guy out there with the chesty on. So cool. All right, man. Thanks for everybody for hanging out with us for an hour and a half. Hope you got some valuable information on this. And we'll next week. Let's see. I got a couple things on the burner. We're going to get Gail Julian from Jewel Bait Company on sometime in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure of the exact rotation. I reached out to Mark Menendez, and he's going to be coming on. He's down fishing. I think they're on Fork this week. So he's down there practicing. He said he'd like to do it, the next couple of weeks after that tournament. So we're going to get Menendez on here. I definitely wanted to touch base on the Asian carp, what he knows about that. It seems like it's gotten better from the couple of trips that I've been down there this year. I really haven't been seeing those carp. So definitely want to pick his brain. He's a great guest, just tons of knowledge. But we'll be doing social media posts and let you know who our guests are going to be. And that's really all I got for you, Ron. Thanks for coming on here, man. Spending some time with us this evening.
Bud, enjoyed it as always.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
All right. Going to sign off. Until next time.